Welcome into the Tech Ed Podcast. I am your host, Matt Kirkner. We are live streaming on YouTube all week here from Las Vegas, Nevada, the Las Vegas Convention Center to be exact, for the Association for Career Technical Education CareerTech Vision 2022. We have CTE professionals from all around the United States and, to be honest with you, all around the globe converging here to connect, collaborate, and build lasting friendships. If you are anywhere near Las Vegas, Nevada, and are passionate like we are about career technical education, about securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent, this is the place to be. Stop on down. And speaking, by the way, of connecting and collaborating and building lasting friendships, I want to talk today with somebody that I've had the sincere pleasure of doing all three of those with over the course of the last several years. He comes to us in the form of Neil Reddy. Neil is the Chief Executive Officer of the Manufacturing Skills Standards Council, doing amazing things in preparing the next generation of workforce, not just for traditional manufacturing careers, but for emerging technologies like Industry 4.0. We will get into all of that on the Tech Ed Podcast. For now, Neil, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Matt. It's a great pleasure to be here today.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Thank you again for our partnership over many years.
It has been a great partnership over many years, spanning a lot of different states all over the Midwest, and now here we are in Las Vegas, Nevada, spending some time with each other because you're doing great things, not just in the Midwest, not just here in Nevada, but all over the United States and all over the world, and thanks so much for that leadership. I know a number of our audience members, probably many of them, if not most, are very familiar with the great work that goes on at MSSC. But for those who may not be perfectly familiar with all the great things you're doing, Neil, give us a quick overview of what you're up to.
Sure. Well, Matt, we're the nation's largest certifying body, particularly to prepare people to enter into career pathways in advanced manufacturing and supply chain logistics. You know, everyone's looking for that opportunity to go into a lucrative career path, and in many cases, manufacturing and supply chain logistics gets kind of looked over and just briefly, but we provide all the certifications and tools to enable people of all sectors and all populations to enter into career paths in manufacturing and logistics. So we have about 2,000 training and assessment centers all over the state, and very active, of course, in all the Lab Midwest states, and providing solutions with all kinds of diverse populations.
And boy, you hit on so many important things there, Neil. Certainly hitting on the diverse populations, which I know so many of us are serious about finding opportunities to reach more underprivileged, underserved populations, bringing people into the world of STEM and manufacturing that maybe, to your point, never even thought about a career in manufacturing, and doing so in a way that we're training them, giving them great entry-level skills, to your point, in areas like supply chain and in manufacturing, giving them third-party certification so that when they walk in the door and they see an employer and that employer sees that individual, they know right off the bat that that individual has certain skills and competencies. So talk just a little bit about what is a third-party credential. You know, I think many of our audience members are familiar, but you just look at the last 5 years or so in the world of education and the attention that credentials are getting. So talk a little bit about what those third-party credentials are.
Sure. So we run 7 certification programs, and what's critical to a high-quality, high-stakes certification is, first of all, the development of the standards. So, for example, we use the frontline workers that do this work on a daily basis as subject matter experts to lay down, identify, and define and validate the standards, and then we use those standards then to develop assessments, and as well as all the learning systems that your team helped provide and introduce to all your states. But there's a lot involved in a high-quality certification, and meeting a very high ISO international standard as a certifying body. So we place quality and as a very critical factor in terms of all 7 of our certifications.
Yeah, that quality is so important. One of the things I've learned from you, Neil, over the course of the last several years that I didn't even know existed is that, you know, I ran manufacturing companies all those years. We had ISO registered quality systems, ISO 9001, 9002 back in the day, maybe QS or TS that we would see certifications or standards rather in the automotive industry. And there's an ISO standard, 17024, if I'm correct,
Yes.
that governs the world of third-party credentials. So for our listeners that are familiar with maybe an ISO standard and having an ISO registered or certified manufacturing operation, being recertified on a regular basis, having an auditor come in, make sure you're meeting a certain standard, you're really holding yourself to that same exact level and bar in the world of third-party certifications under the ISO 17024 standard. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And what it means is that our assessments have to be standalone and high stakes, meaning they have to be proctored. And if an individual has that body of knowledge, they're able to sit for one of our assessments. If they meet the cut score, they earn that credential. There's actually not a course requirement, and it's all, the assessments themselves are all aligned with our standards.
Got it. Yeah, so it's really all about, do you have a competency or not?
Right.
And as long as you can, as long as you can establish that you have that competency, that's what's important in terms of earning the certification. Really, really important, I think, in this day and age when we look probably a little bit less. Here we are at a CTE conference, and I don't want to offend anybody, but looking a little bit less maybe at traditional degrees or diplomas and a little bit more about what are those specific skills and competencies that individuals have, and being able to, like we said earlier, establish that an individual has that competency. Again, this whole area of third-party certifications really, really a progressive area, and I won't even say an emerging area anymore because it has emerged and it's here, and you're doing great work and being recognized, by the way. So I understand that MSSC was recently cited in the White House's Advanced Manufacturing National Strategy October 2022 report. So be honest with you, anytime you've got the White House, the executive body here in the United States, pointing to the work that you're doing, that's a really good day, right? So tell us a little bit about that recognition.
Well, it's of course a fantastic day for us, and we're the only certifying body in the country that are really a product of national legislation at the federal level. So we were federally mandated back in 1998 as the voluntary partner for all of manufacturing to reach out to all sectors and identify standards and build a certification at the production technician level. So we've had relationships with all the agencies in Washington for many years because of that federal mandate.
So going all the way back to 1998, which really kind of shows, I think, what a visionary you and the other folks at MSSC in standing up this great organization now some 24 years ago, way ahead of your time in terms of certifications. And then given your connections and those that came before you, their connections in D.C., and I know you're a resident of Washington, D.C. now, right? Living right there. Yeah, in Alexandria, right? Is it right across the river there? Is that
right across the river?
Yeah. So you're right there in the heart of America's in America's government, and because of that and all of these relationships, and as you and I talk, Neil, it's just amazing. The senators, the members of the House of Representatives, those in the executive branch, people in the Department of Energy, Department of Education, Department of Labor. I mean, it's almost like it doesn't matter which part of federal government we're talking about. You have connections there, and you know how to get things done, and you've been able to do that now over almost a quarter century. Really, really impressive.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. We've had very close relationships with the military, Department of Labor, Department of Commerce, Department of Education, and are providing solutions at the ground level. And so many of our certificants or individuals going through our certifications, many of them don't have the time or the money yet for a full college degree or a 2-year or 4-year degree. They go on to earn degrees, but if you want to give them an opportunity to get a leg up and start earning a higher income and move into a lucrative career pathway, we're that initial stepping stone, those baby steps to building a fantastic career.
Absolutely, those baby steps to getting a career going in the world of advanced manufacturing, maybe the world of supply chain, making sure that individuals have the right skills. And I want to go a little bit deeper now on this White House Advanced Manufacturing National Strategy October 2022 report, in which it praised the work of MSSC defining what we call legacy skills for advanced manufacturing. So for our audience, when you talk about legacy skills, what are those legacy skills, especially in this day and age when manufacturing technology is advancing as quickly as it is?
Sure. Well, believe it or not, when it comes to manufacturing or supply chain logistics, warehousing, distribution, workplaces, there are fundamentals. If you want to look at a military analogy, maybe boot camp would be a good analogy.
Sure.
And you need those fundamentals. And regardless of where you're at, whether you're becoming a machinist or a welder or a mechatronics technician or you're programming a robot, you still need to understand those basic fundamental skills. And legacy makes them sound a little bit outdated because
Sure.
you still need to understand safety.
Right.
These are hazardous workplaces. You need to understand quality practices in order to maintain quality. You need to understand maintenance, and you need to understand processes in production.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter what manufacturing you're in, you need to understand those four. And similar foundational skills for logistics technicians as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, I think you make some really, really interesting distinctions there, Neil. When I think about the world of manufacturing, and now we're getting into, and we'll talk in a little bit about Industry 4.0 technology, smart sensors, smart devices, data analytics, networking, network security, predictive analytics, artificial intelligence. I mean, we can go on and on with all these different technologies. I think sometimes when people start thinking about, all right, we need to teach Industry 4.0 level skills, they forget about the fact that we teach them in order to service and maintain and utilize production equipment that already exists, right? There is no Industry 4.0 without welding. There is no Industry 4.0 without machining, without electric motors, without conveyors, without a lot of these base manufacturing technologies. You know, you talk about the importance of understanding safety. You know, safety doesn't go away just because we have Industry 4.0. In fact, in some ways it might become even more important. The whole idea of quality and understanding standardized quality, understanding how to measure quality, maybe a little bit of statistical process control, sampling, these kind of things. None of that goes away in this world of advanced manufacturing. And so what I'm hearing is that, look, yes, we are living in a day and age where manufacturing technology is already and will continue to advance, but we still have to start with those basic building blocks, understanding what is that base technology and those really simple, I shouldn't say simple, but those basic fundamentals of manufacturing on which we can build advanced skills. Am I understanding that right?
sure, absolutely. Well, they're interrelated. So if you look at these advanced 4.0 technologies like artificial intelligence, for example, so much of that relates to preventative maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not maintaining your systems properly, that means that you can have systems fail, and when systems fail, then you can have safety issues. So it's a perfect example when you have AI programs and Internet of Things and 5G, data analytics. They're all a part of the intelligent systems or integrated intelligent systems in a plant.
Yep.
But they really make the worker's life much safer and much easier, and makes the worker much more efficient, and really improves their work-life experience, actually.
I totally agree with you. You know, one of the questions that I used to get in is, you know, and I know you do a lot of speaking on these types of topics as well. One of the questions I would always get 4 or 5 years ago was, this robotics, this automation, this Industry 4.0 is really cool, but is that technology going to take all the jobs? And right now, I think in a day and age where the biggest challenge to U.S. manufacturing is more and more work becomes reshored as we're starting to realize some of the challenges of a global supply chain. We don't have the workforce to fill those jobs, and in many cases, manufacturers are being forced to automate in order to meet demand and in order to continue to supply their supply chain. I don't get that. Are the robots going to take all the jobs question hardly at all anymore. It's just I think people have come to an understanding that, to your point, advanced manufacturing technology, robotics, automation makes jobs safer, makes them more efficient, makes them more interesting in so many ways. But it also requires an entirely new set of skills in some ways as well. In as much as that the base technologies are still going to be important, or always will be important, now we're introducing some of these new advanced manufacturing and Industry 4.0 technologies. So in as much as you've got standards now that have been around in some cases for, like we said, nearly a quarter century, hard to believe, all the way back in 1998 when you stood the organization up, now that these technologies are starting to and really becoming prolific, and we're talking about smart devices, smart sensors, data analytics, and so on, augmented and virtual reality, what is MSSC doing to remain relevant so that your standards and that CPT certification, for example, when an individual walks into a workplace and says, I have this certified production technician designation, how are you making sure that designation is remaining relevant in this age of advanced manufacturing technology?
Sure. Well, Matt, one of our requirements under our ISO accreditation, so we're third-party accredited, and it's a very high-quality measure, is that we maintain pace with technological change. And it's more critical than ever, especially from a national competitiveness standpoint and the issues you mentioned, that we also make our technicians, whether it's in supply chain logistics or manufacturing, 4.0 ready. So that's why, working with our subject matter experts, leading technologists, that we made sure that all of our certifications maintain current and even ahead of the time technologically, so we don't fall behind as a certifying body, and we're producing the next generation production technician worker.
So staying ahead in terms of listening to employers, understanding what technologies they are using, understanding how their manufacturing operations are changing. And I know one of the key distinctions and differentiators for MSSC, Neil, is just the huge reliance that you've had in a really good way on listening to the voice of manufacturing, listening to the voice of industry, to your point, building standards around what frontline workers are telling us they're doing and they need to do in order to be successful in their roles. And you've done just a phenomenal job in that. And I think as technology continues to move towards things like 4.0, Industry 4.0, and your addition of CPT 4.0, in adopting some of those advanced manufacturing skills and technologies, really, really important. I think the other thing that's changing, and that we're seeing change at a really rapid rate, is the whole impact of the world of supply chain. I think if we had walked around a conference like this, walked around and talked to, just walk down the street and ask people about what is the supply chain, or have you heard of the supply chain 5-10 years ago, we probably would have gotten a lot of confused looks. And today, everybody knows what the supply chain is. And I think part of the reason for that is that we've found out over the course of the last couple of years what the world looks like when that supply chain starts to break down a little bit, or maybe isn't working as efficiently as it has over past decades. One of the things that I've been known to say is that one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that the whole world now knows what those of us in manufacturing knew all along, and that is just an incredible value that U.S. manufacturing provides to our way of life as a whole. When we could get what we want, when we wanted, at the price we wanted to pay, it was pretty easy to take supply chain for granted. Now here we are in this world where that's not the case. People recognize that through some of the challenges we've gone through the last couple of years, challenges at our shipping docks, challenges in getting certain components, constraints in manufacturing, automobiles sitting on lots because they're waiting for 1 or 2 IC chips in order to be completed so they can be shipped. Now the whole world recognizes the importance of supply chain. Well, once again, MSSC way out in front of the supply chain challenges, if you will, the advancements of supply chain, the importance of supply chain, with the addition of the CTSCA certification that you launched now. What has it been, a couple of years or a year and a half? When did that certification get stood up?
The CT the CTSCA certification to prepare people to be supply chain automation technicians. And these automation technicians that are working your Amazon distribution centers, your Walmarts, your Targets, they are the people that enable that product to get to your door that afternoon.
Right.
So when you want to order your dog food and it shows up at 3 p.m. and your dogs are happy, all these technologies, all the automated technologies, conveyor systems, storage and retrieval systems that enable that product to get on a truck and out to your front door quickly, are all implemented, installed, repaired, and maintained by these automation technicians. And we've adopted and introduced 3 certifications: equipment maintenance, equipment repair, and network repair, all in partnership with Amatrol,
right,
a leading, of course, learning management systems provider for manufacturing, and of course, one of the main suppliers for all the Tech Labs products.
Sure.
So, but those are critical certifications, and each one of them provides a very lucrative career pathway in supply chain logistics. All, of course, right in keeping with 4.0 supply chain technologies.
Absolutely. If people haven't had an opportunity to tour a highly advanced, modern distribution center, the technology there would just absolutely blow you away. When we think about the use of robotics and automation in manufacturing, automobile manufacturing, for example, where you've got robots painting cars, assembling cars, moving materials, all these things happening in so many ways autonomously. Same exact types of technology exists in the world of supply chain, just different applications. So we're still teaching electric motors and basic AC/DC circuits and tons of fluid power and motor control and motion control and all these mechatronics technologies that we've been working around in manufacturing for quite some time, and manifesting themselves in the world of supply chain as well. So in the same fashion that we need a manufacturing technician, a maintenance technician, for example, who is maintaining all of that equipment inside of a manufacturing operation, concentrating on things like preventive maintenance so that we solve a problem before we have a production line that goes down. Same exact thing happening in the world of supply chain, and you have built a series of certifications around the competencies that are necessary for an individual who is working on that equipment, to your point, making sure that we can get our dog food when we want it, that those, whatever it is that we order on Amazon shows up when it's supposed to, because the technology within that supply chain center, that distribution center, is working properly. I also understand that there's a hands-on training system that you're using to teach some of these technologies on the supply chain side. Tell us about that.
Sure. Well, we've partnered with Amatrol, as one of the nation's leading manufacturing and supply chain logistics learning systems providers, which is what Amatrol has done an ingenious job of recreating a whole warehouse sorting system called the SkillBoss Logistics device or machine, which is also incorporated with e-learning that has fault systems built into the machine, so that an instructor can take an individual through, whether it's equipment maintenance, equipment repair, and network repair, all the main skills and knowledge they need to become an automation technician. And for example, Target has been involved. Most of the leading distribution companies, FedEx, UPS, Walgreens, Dollar Tree, have all been involved in the development of these 3 certifications. And Target, for example, looks at all 3 of these certifications as a complete preparatory program to be a complete master certification, certified automation technician at their Tech 3 level, meaning that's it's almost like automotive, like a master mechanic if you want to look at automotive, or a master automotive technician. If you have all 3 of these certifications, you're almost at the master level to run the automated systems in a distribution center.
It's a huge vote of confidence. A company like Target, headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota, by the way, not too terribly far from where I live in Milwaukee, and I spent quite a bit of time in Minneapolis as well. Just a great vote of confidence in terms of the quality of these certifications of a company like Target, and I know you have many others that you can't necessarily mention by name, but would be recognizable to us that have partnered with you on the implementation of these great certifications. And is it just implementing CTSCA?
Well, also integrators. So you have integrators are companies that will come in and provide a complete solution for whether it's a retail, wholesale operation, supplier, and they can set up an entire warehousing operation, nuts to bolts, or whole distribution center, nuts to bolts. So all the software systems, the internet systems, all the conveyor systems, racking systems, storage and retrieval systems. And they have been very involved in the development of all 3 of these certifications for our automation technicians. So they've been, Honeywell comes to mind, Swisslog, the big players.
Absolutely.
What are called integrators have been a critical component.
Sure, absolutely, fantastic. And then we think, in as much as we're at the the ACTE show this week, tons and tons of educators who are spending time just seeing incredible technology. I walked the floor, had a break between episodes here about a half an hour ago, and spent some time just looking at all the amazing technologies that are being demonstrated here at ACTE. Really fascinating. For the educators that are at a show like this, the educators that are listening, does CTSCA also have an application in, for instance, a community college, a technical college?
Well, no question that if you're a technical or community college and you are not running a 2-year degree program in logistics and supply chain logistics, particularly around the area of automation, if you're falling short, especially with your community and your employer community. And I think just about all of you do have programs up and running to prepare automation technicians. So one of the great advantages to the CTSCA is that you can make it a part of a.
Absolutely, and we're seeing more and more within a community college and a technical college. I think I just had a meeting on this back in Wisconsin. We're in Nevada today, of course, but I was in Wisconsin 2 mornings ago, and had a meeting with a community college talking about how there's probably more integration and partnership than ever before between the credit and non-credit sides of the house when you come to the community college. I think in the past, those 2 groups in some cases almost felt like they were competing, CPT or CPT Plus or CPT 4.0. If we have an employer that is skilling its team members up to CTSCA, now you can find ways to crosswalk that back and forth between the credit, the non-credit, and the workforce side, and really create some really cool stackable educational opportunities that really people weren't talking about 5-10 years ago. Same thing.
30 years ago, pay scales weren't there, and so I would have to work 3 jobs and then go to school at night and then go to school in the summers. But if you can make it one of these if you can earn one of these certifications, and make $20 an hour, $25, $26 an hour as an
Right.
equipment maintenance technician,
Yep.
you then now have the money to pay for your whole degree and go through a degree program.
Right. Absolutely.
And especially with employers providing tuition reimbursement.
Mm-hmm.
If you're only making $4 an hour back in my day,
Right. Exactly. That was a lot of money back then.
I
actually.
was working 3 jobs
Right.
in order to pay my way through college.
I'm the same way. I mean, I remember just thinking back on my senior year of college. I would get up in the morning, and I went and I worked for the Milwaukee County Aquatics Department in the morning,
Yeah.
and I would work there 3 hours, and then I would go to class from like 11:30 to 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then I would drive out to one of our local high schools and coach swimming for 3.5 hours, and then Saturdays and Sundays we're back working at the aquatics department, and that was the world that that I grew up in. Sounds like the world that you grew up in. I don't want to insinuate that it's so much harder today, because certainly young people have challenges today that we didn't necessarily have to face. But in terms of the options available to them for funding their education, it's just options that never existed before. Considering things that haven't existed before, we're seeing now unprecedented levels of funding in the world of technical education. We talked about your connections in Washington, D.C. We were privileged on the Tech Ed podcast just a couple short weeks ago to be joined by U.S. Senator Todd. You're living right outside of Washington, D.C. You and your family have been doing this for a long, long time. From your unique perspective, Neil, what impact will this and all of this funding that we're seeing in the world of education right now, what impact will it have on industry-recognized certifications?
Well, there's no question that the American Rescue Plan, as it's being implemented through Department of Commerce, the Economic Development Agency, through Department of Labor and the Employment and Training Administration, we're now seeing $3 billion, for example, going into workforce training, workforce development, and they're really understanding the need to have this next level technician, these higher skilled people, to really, as we mentioned earlier, to bring manufacturing back to America for reshoring, but to upskill our citizens and make them much more productive and higher skilled workers.
Right.
And we've never seen this kind of investment at a federal level,
Mm-hmm.
$3 billion. We've seen, especially by one agency, Department of Commerce, Economic Development Agency, and also Department of Labor having the kind of budgets they have. It's unprecedented.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think our message to educators in the most lovingly way possible is, let's not screw this opportunity up. There's so many, so much money, so much funding. Let's spend it in the way that actually helps solve the problem in the skilled manufacturing sector. And thanks to folks like all the great people at MSSC, I think we're doing exactly that. I have one final question for you, Neil, in about the 45 seconds we have left in this episode. We talked about being a young person making $4 an hour. My first job, actually $3.32 an hour as a sophomore in high school. If you had one piece of advice to give to somebody that age, a sophomore in high school, 15, 16-year-old young individual, what would that piece of advice be?
Invest in yourself. Take the time. Do a little bit more homework. Look at different career pathways. There's no greater investment than the investment that you can make in your own education and your own person, and it's also the one investment that cannot be taken away from you.
That's a really great point. Yeah, the one investment that nobody can ever take away from you. Once you're educated, that education is yours forever. Once you have an MSSC certification, that belongs to you forever. Thanks, Neil, to you, to your entire team. You really are helping